Have you ever felt the ground crumble beneath you? Even when you're firmly planted on solid earth? Imagine that. A world you trusted shifts, and suddenly you're stranded not just in place, but in your belief in what's safe, what's right, what's real. That's the unsettled heart of The Wager by David Grann. It starts with the ship tossed into oblivion, but what follows is more than survival. It's a reckoning with truth, power, and the stories we tell in the dark to keep ourselves alive. David Grann, a master of uncovering history's hidden corners, spent years piecing the story together. He traveled to the wind-gnawed island where a British warship, the Wager, sank in 1741. He sifted through logbooks, letters, court records, and every fragment he could find to bring back a story that history almost lost. That careful restoration matters today because it reminds us truth isn't a single light shining from above. It's what we piece together when everything fractures. The Wager asks one piercing question. When civilization falls away, who gets to write what remains? That pulse, beating beneath every chapter, gives the book its power. A call to look harder at the stories we inherit and the ones we tell ourselves. The first lesson is about the fragility of morality when everything else disappears. These sailors, cast ashore on a desolate shore near Patagonia, grapple with hunger, cold, and fear. At first, they form alliances, share food, set up shelters, pull what remains of their world into something they recognize. But as hunger deepens, kindness frays. Men steal rations, fight, sometimes kill, not out of innate cruelty, but because starvation amplifies desperation. There's a vivid moment when one survivor scavenges half-buried biscuit crumbs, his fingers trembling not from cold, but shame. And yet in that shame lies our own humanity mirrored. Not perfect, not heroic, but painfully real. It reminds us that in our moments of strain, we must remember that doing wrong doesn't always mean you're bad. It means you're human. Holding on to that distinction, even when everything unravels, is the quiet choice that matters. Then there is the second truth. Leadership is a fragile contract, and in chaos, legitimacy shifts like sand. Captain Cheap tries to assert command, carving out order with rationed meals and schedules for firewood. It feels familiar, dependable, until a rival emerges in Gunner Bulky. Bulky speaks not from rank, but from need. He promises escape from the island, a path forward, quelling fear with purpose. Men begin to follow him not because the law demands it, but because hope whispers that stride by stride liberation might lie ahead. That shift shows us that leadership isn't authority, it's belief. Even today, we see this when someone without the title inspires trust through vision, empathy, presence. It's a reminder that what matters isn't the office, but the way someone speaks to your heart in your darkest hour. The third insight flows from memory. When these men stagger home, some landing in Brazil, some weeks later in Chile, they bring stories that don't match. One group speaks of cruelty, betrayal, shards of broken promises. Another speaks of courage, resilience, pragmatic decisions that save lives. When the survivors face a court-martial, what's at stake isn't just what happened on that frozen shore, but how Britain wants to be seen. The empire doesn't just contest facts, it contests meaning, and memory becomes malleable, shaped by grief, fear, and self-preservation. That echoes into our lives whenever we tell our own stories, especially the hardest parts. How much of our narrative is fact? How much is the version that lets us keep sleeping at night? Grann doesn't accuse, he invites us to consider that every account carries not just events, but emotion, agenda, and hope. Then there is a lesson about empire, about power beyond the people who lived each day on that beach. Britain hushes the trial. Papers disappear. The version that reaches the public is polished, heroic, tidy. It's not just history, it's selection. That reminds us that institutions, nations, corporations, they all shape what gets told. So in our lives today, when we scroll past the headline or read a soundbite, we're really choosing which story to receive. The wager asks us to remember to ask who benefits from that version. It turns passive consumption into active questioning, and that in itself is a powerful act of citizenship and self-respect. A quieter, but no less potent lesson lies in the complexity of people, of survival, of truth. There are no perfect heroes on that island. Cheap is pragmatic, both caring and ruthless. Bulky is resourceful, both inspiring and manipulative. The landscape is both prison and crucible, offering testing and truth. Survival doesn't demand purity. It demands resilience, adaptability, introspection. We are asked not to glamorize survival, but to honor it, and to recognize that complexity exists in our own choices, the times we've bent, forged, or just held on until dawn. Each moment in the book flows into the next, from shipwreck to trial, from hunger to courtroom, from small betrayals to trembling hope. As the narrative shifts, you feel your heart tighten with fear, then widen with compassion, then furrow in confusion. That art, it pulls you across time, from your comfortable chair to that wind-swept shore with bleak skies and trembling men. And it asks, if your world changed tomorrow, what would you cling to? What story would you want someone to remember? When the final gavel falls, when the island remains empty again, what lingers is much more than survival. It's the echo of voices that nearly disappeared. It's a question, soft but insistent, about how we piece together truth from what's left behind. It leaves you with the sense that to survive doesn't end when you walk home. It continues when you finally speak. Because stories, well-wrought, honest, and messy, they deserve to be told, and to listen is an act of grace. I hope you felt that flicker of cold wind, that stir of empathy for men so far removed in time, yet so deeply familiar in fear and longing. If your heart felt the weight of their hunger, the pull of their decisions, then know this: the full book holds even more depth, more detail, more questions to sit with. I invite you to let David Grann guide you deeper into that world and maybe into parts of yourself. Thank you for listening. If this stirred something, curiosity, discomfort, admiration, I'd love to hear it. What story would you tell if everything you knew shifted overnight? Leave a comment, and if you'd like more journeys into the heart of a book, I'd be honored to walk beside you next time. Until then, may your own stories be honest, and may you find the courage to listen to the ones you inherit.